Hi, I have been testing a 3D game engine and editor called Coppercube. The base form is a freeware, so this is what the Coppercube interface looked like when we open the application up. We have a Scene Graphic Explorer window that is showing what items we have in a scene. Starting up, we have a cube mesh and a skybox. We have a properties window where we can see properties for a chosen item, the Scene Graph Explorer. So we have cube mesh 1 chosen in the Explorer, and we can now check the property of that node in the properties window. Under the Attributes tab, we can see Type, Name, and we can change the name of the node. We can see Position, Rotation, and Scale. We can change those values. We can also change them by manipulating the arrows in the viewport based on the Select, Move, Rotate, Scale buttons. It seems like the origin point of a mesh is in the middle of the mesh. Back to the Properties window, we have a checkbox for Visible, for Collision, which means that moving objects can collide with this object. It can be used for walls and such things. And we have Occludes Light, which mainly means that the object blocks light and can cast a shadow. The Materials tab shows if and what texture is used by a mesh. We have a Textures window over here that shows which textures we have available for the game. We can add more materials to this window using the Add button. We can choose a texture from the window and replace the texture on the mesh. We can have static or dynamic lighting. With dynamic lighting, we need to add a light source to the scene to see the texture. We also have a number of options under this tab that I have not yet fully examined. The Behavior tab is where we make our coding. Now, Coppercube is advertised as a non-coding game engine, which is something I find myself not being willing to fully agree with. There is coding, it is just not done by writing the full code, but rather by choosing alternatives from a checklist, creating a code that way. So what we have to do is first to pick a behavior and then to pick an action to go with that behavior. Well, some behavior work by themselves and don't have separate actions attached to them. So here we can have an item fly in a circle according to different factors that we can set. We can rotate in different directions. We can fly in a direction from a start point to an end point. We can follow a path, which requires that we first define a path, which we can do from Edit, Insert, Create a Path. Or it can be done from the Create tab up here in the toolbar area. Collide, when moved, creates a collision box for the moving object that stops them from going through, for example, walls. That has the collision attribute turned on. And it stops the item from going through the floor if gravity is turned on. Gravity is an attribute of the scene node. Behaviors triggered by events have a number of sub-behaviors to pick from. If we pick when a key is pressed to do something, we get to choose which key, which includes left and right mouse button. We get to choose if the action is started when the key is pressed down or let up, and we get to set the action. And we can have a number of different actions to choose from. These actions also will show up together with other behaviors. In the text below there will be links to a web page with an overview description of different behaviors, and to a web page with an overview description of what the different actions can do. To use this system to make code, you need to have a good overview of what different combinations you have available. But even so, you might want to do something that is outside the available alternatives. The good news is that one available action is to execute JavaScript. This adds the possibility to add your own code, your own written code, both to do things you otherwise could not do, and in some cases to do things more effectively than the behavior action method. The JavaScript method has one complication. To communicate with the engine, we must use a number of special functions to get or set variables in the engine. You will also find a link to a list of those functions in the description below. There is also a possibility to create your own behavior action using JavaScript, and you can download a number of such scripts done by others. So the non-coding coding can be a bit tricky. Going on with different windows, we have a prefab window with different assets you can add to the game. You can also add other assets using Create Mesh or Create Animated Mesh. We have looked at the texture window before. You can see that as we have added an animated mesh, a couple of new textures have been added. At the top we have a couple of buttons for looking at the viewport from different sides. And besides that we have a window with a couple of tabs. We have the tab Create, with which we can add different things to the scene. We have a couple of basic meshes that we can add and possibly build stuff of. For myself, I think I would rather build something in a different application and import that into the game. We have a couple of different types of cameras that we can add. Cameras are important. That is what are going to determine what is shown on the game screen. Terrain is a cool button. With that we can easily build a piece of terrain. We can get different types of terrains with different settings. We have different tools to reshape the terrain. If we make an indent in the terrain, we can add water and make a lake in the terrain. We have a special function for building trees, so you can create your own trees. The room button gives you a simple way to build a room or a couple of rooms. You paint what areas are floor area and which are wall areas. You can have different textures for different parts of the walls and the floors. You can decide the height of the walls. We have three options for ceiling: none, flat or curved. There will be ceiling where there are floors. You can have a separate texture for the ceiling. This is a quick and dirty way to make some rooms for your game. Of course, we can make a model outside in an application of your choice and import that with the mesh button. Or you could find other ready-made models and import that. You also have a button for import animated meshes. That could be a player character or a different non-player character. The number of formats that will be imported is more limited for animated meshes than for meshes that are not animated. We have different buttons for different kinds of light sources. Billboards are surfaces to put 2D images on. The surface is always turned towards the active camera. It can be used for stuff that is not better done with a 3D model. We have a particle system that can be used to simulate smoke and such. Skybox. In the start scene, a skybox is already included. A skybox is a big cube with a texture on the inside simulating skies and whatever is in the distance in the game milieu. We have a sound button. Sounds can be 3D with a place in the room, or 2D playing the same, independent of the position in the room. There are also other ways to add sound. 2D item is similar to a billboard in that it is a surface to project a 2D image on. The difference is that the billboard have a 3D position in the scene, while the 2D item have a 2D position compared to the screen. It is useful, for example, for displays, buttons and such. 2D input seems to be for touchscreen inputs. I have not tried that yet. I really just use a desktop computer. And finally, we have buttons for paths that can be used to control the movement of a node. The things we can do in this window under this tab, we can also do under Edit, Insert. Under the Polygon Edit tab, it seems to be Tools to edit a model. I don't think I will have much use of that. The Light Mapping tab have some possibilities of settings. I have not really examined those possibilities yet. Scenes. We can move between different scenes, add new scenes, delete, change name. This can also be done from the Scene tab in the toolbar. From the Publish tab, we can render our game to the 4 different formats that are available for Windows, Mac, Web or Android. I'm mainly interested in making web games at this time. So that is the perspective I am looking at this from. We have duplications of publish, testing and settings in different combinations in this window, under File and under Tools in the toolbar. In the Publish settings, I am going to set screen size under the WebGL tab to my preferred size, 640 and 480. The rest I let be as it is. Under File, we have standard commands such as New, Open recent file, Save and Save as. The files will be saved as CCB files. Under Edit, we have a number of possibilities to make modifications. Under View, we have a number of different alternatives, including a couple of windows we have not seen yet: Animated Mesh Editor, Sound Manager window, Script window and Output window. Under Help, we can open up documentation and a Coppercube website. Well, that is a walkthrough of what we have in the application's interface. I like that the interface has a fairly limited number of stuff to keep track of, and it could have been even fewer with less of duplications. So the next step would be to make something with the application, but that will have to wait for another video. For now, thank you for watching and see you later. Bye!